liberation just have vastly different understandings of what liberation is for.
I haven't seen this much importance and attention.
The story itself is a really wonderful, really great setup.
Tractor beam has been engaged.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Tractor Beam Comics Reviews, your one-stop shop for in-depth commentary and discussion on the Star Wars book that came out today. It is Wednesday, February 5th, 2025. It's the sixth week of comics in 2025. It's one we've been waiting for quite a while, quite some time. Definitely a lot lighter on the actual book releases than last week, which had a record 6. This only has 1. But oh my, what a book. And as you can see, we got the whole gang back together, both Chris and Joel. Chris, how you doing this week?
Doing excellent. I have been jumping around the Destiny universe as a stormtrooper with lightsabers. So my dream has come true. We are forever closer to that elusive Star Wars MMO. Well, I mean, we have the Old Republic, but I mean, it's still fun, like running around with guns as a stormtrooper, just blasting stuff away.
And not to be outdone, joining us is our resident sequelist, partner in crime over at the Ion Cannon podcast. It's Mr. Joel Davis. How you doing, Joel?
Is this General Hugs? Come in. I'm doing good. I'm doing great. I'm excited for today.
There we go. Getting to comic books here on the Tractor Room Comics Reviews. First off, quick plugs out of the way. Follow us on Blue Sky at Ion Cannon. Also, Twitter, Instagram, and Threads at Ion Cannon Pod, EYEONCANONPOD. Also, follow Chris, everything he's up to at Star Raptor, youtube.com/Star Raptor, and on the Bird app at STARRAPTER. Also, off audio is more your speed. Right after this episode is done, I will throw this up on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you're listening on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, please do give us a hello, give us a wave, let us know if that's what your preference is. Last but not least, Joel, I'm glad you're here because we can get to talk about the Star Wars Underworld podcast network. Includes, of course, the Ion Cannon podcast and the flagship Star Wars Underworld podcast. I'm not too sure what else going on podcast-wise around the network, but definitely the Discord server is alive and kicking, roaring fire, go to a little campfire there, digital campfire going on. Down in the description, you can find a link that will get you right into the Discord server. We're talking about Star Wars comics, we're talking about Star Wars novels, we're talking about Star Wars TV shows, we're talking about Marvel, Fantastic Four, all that fun stuff. And then, of course, there's game nights, movie nights. Joel, anything happened recently? Anything coming up?
Last week we had a movie night with watching The Land Before Time. That was the first time Ben ever saw it, so I was excited about that. This week we're going back to Tried and True game night with all sorts of games of your pleasures. And I'll just say we're thinking next week we do another movie night with another special movie. So you can look out for that. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
There we go. Yeah, so join that down in the description below. Yeah, the water's fine. Let's dive into it. Let's get into it. We've been waiting for this one for a bit. The first ongoing of the new era, Legacy of Vader, #1, written by Mr. Charles Soule, art by Luke Ross, colors by Nolan Woodward, letters by VC's Joe Caramagna, and cover by Derek Chu. First of all, if anyone has the cover handy, it really pops. And one thing I noticed, one thing I noticed is that the Vader is in red, and that just really, I don't know, it's just a striking visual. Also, the 10 years of Star Wars comics logo there. That was also on New Legacy, but just to notice, yeah, it's on this one as well. Let's dive right in. Darth Vader's shadow extends into the rise of the First Order. The reign of Supreme Leader Kylo Ren begins. Kylo's dark obsession leads him to Mustafar. What secrets does Fortress Vader hold for the young tyrant? And what face from the past will guide him on his quest? There's so much to get into with this one. I will say, first off, the first impressions and feelings of this comic is, you know, when you're watching a TV show and you're just so enthralled, so into it, and you keep going, oh yeah, there's going to be more, there's going to be more, and all of a sudden, nope, it's the end. There it is. Oh, that's surprising. Not in a kind of a bit of maybe a bit of a letdown. Oh, I want more, but more in a sense of, oh wow, I was really enthralled, really into this book. I mean, Charles has a way of writing, and I think credit to Luke Ross and Nolan Woodward for really blocking out and pacing out the frames and just the different moments, the different styles of just again just putting where the actual frames and what cells. I'm blanking out what's called comics podcast, but I forget what the basic comic. Just the way the page is laid out to really get into the feel of Kylo Ren's head and what the scene is doing. It was incredibly, like, we use this a lot, say cinematic. This one was incredibly, felt like watching a TV show. It really, or even a film. It was just the transition from this opening act of him standing in front of his First Order troops, and we'll get into this, but his introduction as the Supreme Leader to the First Order was right after Crate, and then going into that conversation with Hux about the First Order's assets. A lot of exposition, a lot of going into what are the First Order's assets, what are our strengths, what are our weaknesses, what do we need to shore up here, and then Hux is like, yeah, that's great, go build a throne, literally go sit in a corner and do nothing consequential while I go off and explore this deeper inner conflict turmoil. It launches right into all these flashbacks of Luke or Crate and of both of his parents, and you think even of Rey in that scene, and how the way it switches into a less traditional page layout really helps set the feel of this is almost he's clearly so haunted by his encounter on Crate and everything, both with Luke and with Rey, and everything she's just experienced. And so that it really sets up that he it's very similar to the beginning of Greg Pak's Darth Vader comic, in that just the experience, that encounter on Bespin, the Cloud City, and he's Vader reeling from that with Luke, launching right into that year before the Hansicle, before Empire and Return of the Jedi. Here is, of course, Kylo Ren right after everything with the Last Jedi, going into heading towards everything we see in Rise of Skywalker, but clearly far away from that. And then it goes to, like the description says, goes to Vader's castle and encounters none other than Vane in like a Bomar monk kind of droid thing going on, and really right off the bat confronts the very thing, the very iconic line that Kylo Ren is we hear in his head, "Let the past die, kill it if you have to." It was in the trailer, I think, right? For Last Jedi, really imprinted on his psyche. He's all about letting the past die, and yet he's so unfulfilled. And Vane tells him, "You ignorant fool." Vader's past was his power. He didn't let the past die. He let it fuel him. And maybe, I don't know, just thinking of this now, because that's the thing, his past is what ends up saving him in the end. If that's ultimately where this comic book is going, to his turn in Rise of Skywalker. Maybe not. Maybe I'm reading too much into that already, but the fact that it's setting up what we know starting in issue number 2, going to explore Vader's story through Kylo Ren's eyes and how he confronts his past. It goes to Tatooine, and we all heard about what happens in that issue. So yeah, so much to go into, so much to unpack. Chris, I'll throw this to you. What maybe we can even go beat by beat almost in that first little act there with the with the Snokeat introduction. What stood out to you?
Yeah, overall, I thought the issue was good. I thought it could have been I thought I had my expectations set a little too high on this for the first issue. I'll actually go a step further. What you said, Matthew, about like it felt like it was short, like literally. Like I do feel like the part of the problem was there was a lot of real estate on like full page layouts.
Yeah, that's true. Actually.
In the beginning, that took up like 5 or 6 pages. I want to say that really kind of made things seem shorter because it's a lot quicker to read through those. It's like, scroll whatever through those pages like really quick because there's like no dialogue. So by the time I got to the end, I'm like, oh wow, I feel like there needed to be more dialogue. I felt like it wasn't like, and that's the thing, it's ongoing, so it's going to continue obviously for more than just 5 issues. So it's a different grading system I have to give it because I do have to give it more room to breathe. But still, like I said, it wasn't bad at all. This is a good issue. It's getting into the psyche of Kylo Ren. But yeah, speaking about the first part, I thought it was great. I thought it was thought provocative. I thought this is how you start a comic book. That's a long going comic book. Like shock and awe for the troops. Like, oh my gosh, like Snoke just getting bisected, throwing him out the window, but then him blaming that it was basically Rey that did it. I thought that was interesting. And then galvanizing these guys to believe that it was actually her, and then rallying the troops because he's got to make a name for himself. Yeah. We have a year gap between Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker, which is worth noting because we see him in a completely different lens when we see him in the Rise of Skywalker. So he's got to start somewhere. He's got to be able to have a show of force and kind of, show these people that he's not just this little crybaby guy that is just like, getting this because of his grandfather's Vader. Like, he's got to prove it to them. And he does it in a way that's like kind of terrifying and unhinged, which is purely on brand for Kylo Ren. So that was cool.
Joel, you wanted us to actually see this your internal art. This is from the previews as well. Just lift. So the page before, he has these 2 boxes. He rolls these 2 boxes. So ominous and saying, and Hux is all, do you want me to introduce yourself? No, I'll do this myself. I'm the Supreme Leader. I mean, this fits with the theme of letting the past die very clearly. I mean, we know that from Last Jedi, but I mean, that's the moment where he says to Rey, let Snoke, the Jedi, whatever, let the past die. You hear this is the end. This is the beginning. His whole thing of mercilessly, brutally wiping the slate clean here. Joel, what struck you? What struck you with this visual, and what brings you to have us actually see it on screen here?
I just think it just goes hard, man. Like this is this is like This is like day 0 after Last Jedi.
Yeah.
I mean, also, he blamed Rey in the Last Jedi. That's who Huxley's killed Snoke. So he blamed Rey in the movie. That's the continuation of Last Jedi plot line. I don't know. I just think this goes hard. Just like, I'm in charge. I'm the Supreme Leader now. Snoke's dead. Just yeet him off into space now. The Stormtroopers are like, oh, all right. Yeah. And then like, okay, thank you very much. I just think it's just such a hard image.
Yeah.
Just goes into it. So like, that's how you start a comic.
I mean, there's a moment with the Stormtroopers kind of milling about themselves, deciding, what do we do? All right, let's go for this. I mean, it very much. It's interesting because later on he'll be all to the Vader mask. How do you do it? How did you deal with all these underlings? And yet, this is very much a Vader Palpatine move of evoking fear, evoking domination. In this case, of course, domination over what the First Order thought they knew and thought they was in control. We don't know how long Snoke is in charge here, but all of a sudden,
at least 7 years.
Yeah, at least 7 years. That's a while. That's a while. All of a sudden, here we go. Here's Kylo Ren saying, who was. They always knew him as Snoke's number 2. Here's what our enemy has done. You both picked up on that with Rey, him blaming Rey and vilifying her in almost a projection of his sense of that she's rejected him, so she has to be the enemy. I mean, that was always the situation politically, if you will, but now it seems he's taking it personally.
I
More
think he
so
took it
than-
personally from the beginning. To
Well,
be fair.
well, especially,
Yeah.
well, I mean, from Force Awakens, sure, but especially I think with Last Jedi, with what happens there in the throne room. So that, and then yeah, I mean, Chris, it's interesting you said this needed more exposition or need more dialogue. We get a whole honking chunk of it in.
Yeah, maybe that's not the best comment I said. There is a lot of it in the middle, at least.
Yeah,
with the
in the middle.
exposition.
So I mean, maybe if it had been more balanced out, maybe that sense of it being longer. I mean, I didn't mind it, frankly, but yeah, it was really. I mean, it's really fascinating going into the conversation with Hux, saying again, getting us set up for what the situation is now. You know that the First Order, like Ray says, control the major star systems, and both the Republic and the Resistance are gone, are decimated. They're in charge. They could go ahead,
so they
take over. Oh, so they think, right? But yeah, that's an interesting point. I'm curious to see how relevant the People's Fleet and
Read Resistance Reborn. That's what's going on right now. For
that's true. That's that's happening in the background as well. No, not in the background. I mean, it all alongside. It's in the background to this comic. Yeah, but this whole thing of they have the upper hand, and yet Kylo Ren says, So I see both ion cannon and tractor in there. They have the upper hand, and I don't know what's whatever. Sorry, got distracted there for a second. They have the upper hand, and yet Kylo Ren says, "Okay, my trusted advisor, again, go in the corner, go build me a throne, do nothing insignificant." This great shot of Kylo Ren, or of Hux going, or like the hands on orange, and like. Well, first I had to deal with Kylo Ren. First I had to deal with Snoke. Now I have to deal with this guy. Come on.
I like to go into that if you.
Yeah. I'll get to in a second, but I will throw it to you. But to say that while and I think again the purpose of this, almost to say he wants to take advantage. Kylo Ren wants to take advantage of the fact that they're in control, and so they can take a beat, and he needs to take a beat. Because now that he's in control and he actually has to go figure this out, so that he actually has time to go and say, okay, what is it with Vader? Going to the mask and saying, how did you do it? Oh, we're gonna start killing the past. We're gonna start with you, Grandpa. For some reason, which is he can't possibly mean that. He admires him too much. So he goes all the way to Mustafar to figure this out. So it's interesting. And I really appreciated then the way that heavy exposition scene, it sets up again the political situation, the military situation throughout the galaxy, which we need, but also then sets up this circumstance of having time, he's taking time for himself to go and explore this. Joel, you wanted to jump in here. What struck you about that scene?
Well, I think the way the scene just plays out is very interesting. Like at first, Kylo kind of tries more like a tack of like you were a trusted advisor, and then Snoke didn't tell me everything, but he told me stuff. What do you know? And then Huck's like, well, you could do what our forebears could. You could rule the galaxy. And then Kylo just immediately turns on Hux, saying like, your ancestors are a bunch of sniveling lieutenants and nobodies. I got the cool ancestors. And Huck's like, oh, right. And then Kylo Ren goes to, okay, no, tell me everything about what we got. And Hux goes into, we lost Starkiller Base and supremacy, so we cooked some mass beatings, but we're pretty good, and then we just have to deal with local forces, but the galaxy's in chaos right now. And then Hux wants to, start having big military plans. Then, Kylo Ren goes into like, just build me a throne or something. That's your order of the day. And then, just do it right, schmuck. And then he just walks out. So I just love the way that scene kind of plays out, where it's like at first Kylo tries to be more official, then he gets a little bit snippy with the whole my ancestors are better than your ancestors. My grandpa and dad are better than your dad,
Yeah.
pretty much. And then he gets into like build me a throne, which I just thought was interesting. So it's very much up, down, up, down, up, down. In terms of dialogue, for a second, I am kind of curious about with this comic in particular how that's going to go, because I've never considered Kylo Ren a very talkative character. He's even in the movies, he's kind of quiet, right? He's not a big elegant speaker, except in the TFA novelization, which doesn't really count. But he's there's a whole scene where he has like a whole speech in that film, in that novelization. But in the movies, Adam Driver, kind of plays him quietly like this. Girl killed Snoke. He doesn't talk much.
Yeah.
So I am kind of, a lot of the exposition or the thought process will have to be in the face. I think you have to kind of, unlike Vader, who kind of, the mask kind of covers him, and Vader can have big booming speeches. Kylo Ren is more, and then doesn't talk much, and then stupid Snoke. Which I thought was really good. But no, I really admired those scenes, and I can only imagine eventually we'll get an arc where eventually the First Order is going to be like, dude, stop with the spiritual journeys. You got a First Order to run here. We got galaxies to conquer. What are you doing, man? Even Vader knew how to command the Force. And I hope we get to see Kylo step up in a later arc. But that was one of my favorite scenes in the whole comic.
I mean, on that note, it's interesting. Hux has to stay alive somehow. So I wonder if it's going to be. I wonder if it's going to be another character that we don't know yet. Have a new character who
General
tries
Pride,
to say
probably.
that. Well, no, a character who tries to say that to Kylo, and then eats it because you don't say that to Kylo Ren. But then maybe someone who, well, that'll also be interesting. Is there anyone who's going to earn Kylo Ren's trust in order to be able to say something like that? Maybe Hux for a moment. I don't know. We'll see.
I'll say in the novelization, General Pride is very much that person, because Kylo, actually doesn't really trust him, but he's like, this guy's not afraid of me, and I both respect that, but I kind of scared of it. Like, this Pride guy's like kind of suspicious, but he's also kind of tough, so I keep him around.
I mean, that's interesting that you mentioned that, because in Greg Pak's comic, he shows up. Yeah. He's the sniveling little, oh, Lord Vader, worship at your feet, Lord Vader. Yes, Lord Vader, I'll jump how high. But he kind of is able to figure things out on his own. And Vader always respects that much. And so maybe given that experience, given that this is also a Vader comic, as well as this is a Vader through Kylo Ren's eyes, to say, okay, well, what does Pride look like? What does General Pride look like through as this former Vader sort of lackey look like? Yeah, maybe it'll be him who's able to say, come on, let's get to it, buddy.
I'll also add one more thing, and then we can move to the next part. In the tie-in materials for Rise of Skywalker, it's heavily implied Pride is one of the few officers who knows who the real power of the First Order is, and is channeling messages to Exegol.
Yep.
So
Yep. That's true.
There's definitely and we know Charles has thought a lot about Rise of Skywalker, about how to make it make more sense, how to kind of smooth over some of the rougher bits of that transition between First Order and Final Order, and Sheev showing up. So I think that I can see that coming in. Chris, we haven't gotten to your thoughts on this scene, on this kind of middle section of the comic. What stood out to you?
Yeah, I don't have too much to add. I think I echo a lot of your thoughts. Just it's good to see that the relationship between Hux and Kylo Ren, because we've been seeing that since the Force Awakens. We've been seeing, especially going to the end of The Last Jedi, the MTM6 Walker, and they're on the shuttle, and it's like they're bickering essentially, like, oh no, you do this, no, you fire, it's like they're always at odds with each other, and we're just seeing that magnified. And then it's just like Kylo just don't want to take any crap like at all at this point from Hux and his upbringing and all. And the idea where it's like, does it matter what our resources are? Like, you're a command. And he's like, no, it's good to kind of show the audience where we are in this timeline. Yes, this is still how these guys conduct themselves with one another. And the throne bit was pretty funny. It's just like a big FU, like, okay, you're gonna just build me a throne. You're not significant enough to even do anything else right now. So have fun doing that.
It's interesting. He starts off, you're a trusted advisor, kind of doing the Snoke thing of keeping the rabid cur around, and then does what he did in the first chunk of saying, here's the Snoke yeet. This is kind of the whole throne thing, and just the transition. Did I order you to do this? That's his version of the Snoke yeet, in the sense of, I'm in charge. You do what I say, and you don't add anything. And it's kind of, again, ruling by fear and get it right. And we're gonna. I mean, it'd be interesting. I mean, another thing to remember is, Rise of Skywalker. Hux turns on him straight up. It doesn't matter if you win. I just need Kylo Ren to lose. He's done. Where does that come from? Obviously, it starts in Last Jedi, but we're gonna see.
So that's another thing, right? Getting into this comic book, I wouldn't be surprised if we have a B plot, where is Hux going through, and you get to see the telegraph of him turning. Maybe we actually see him like in the last issue or two, like talking to that one character that Mark Hamill voices or something like that. Like, I could see the connected lines of, okay, we get to see him actually jump ship in this. We get to see what's happening there. We get to see the Palpatine speech, right? That played in Fortnite. It's like there's a lot of good stuff that got cut that I feel like is going to be fulfilled. And that's the point of this, right? Is to build up and make it like the Clone Wars, make it like the Vader series that Charles did, smoothing out the edges of different things, and especially with the Last Jedi, with the Rise of Skywalker, two different directors, two different writers that were on different thought processes. It's like, okay, you have Kylo Ren that is not wearing the helmet, that is going back to wearing the helmet. Different ideologies from these different people making these movies. So how do we somehow make it make sense? And it's like, I do not want to be in Charles Soule's shoes to figure that one out, because
I think it's actually pretty easy to make it and figure out. Just say Kylo Ren's inconsistent. That's the point. He's inconsistent.
Maybe.
Yeah. When it like he in this comic, it's like, screw you, Grandpa, I'm going to kill you now too. And then it's like Vinay just like, hold on a minute, buddy. And then it's like, oh, okay. Like, back and forth. He's all over the place. I think that's kind of the point. He's a erratic person.
Yeah, that could be in terms of, but I mean, in terms of making us feel that, I think that's another thing that Clone Wars really did amazingly. I think we're used to. We've had Rise of Skywalker for now 7 years. Charles Soule has had 7 years to think about this, and he has been. We know so. Just how he's gonna take this. So he's definitely the right guy for this story. But I get what you mean, Joel. It's just kind of going back and forth. Yeah, so go ahead.
I'll also wonder, to add to Chris's point, I wonder how well this comic will also kind of wiggle and seed through the stuff that we do have in between this era, because there is stuff, right? There is the Resistance Reborn. There's all the Galaxy's Edge stuff, which is canon. That story's canon. Yep. There's that Star Wars Allegiance comic. There's Resistance Rising. At the end of this arc, is Kylo Ren going to come back to the First Order ship and be like, sir, there was this thing on Corellia. Oh, and we saw the girl. She was there. The Resistance is still active, actually. Oops. And then Kylo Ren's like, time to start taking names.
Also, Galactic Star Cruiser, which is at about the same time as, like, basically the same day as Galaxy's Edge. So, and Kylo Ren and Rey duel in that. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen it. So, that we still haven't gotten to the meat of this comic. I do want to get into that. He says, I'm gonna start with you, Vader. I'm gonna go to Mustafar. And of course, as promised, he goes to Mustafar, and he's greeted by these Mustafarians, who was, let's make him welcome by shooting arrows at him. I loved the way Luke Ross, especially.
This was the best part of the comic book.
Just you really feel him fighting through and saying,
Yeah.
struggling for his legacy.
Luke-
He's fighting. Yes, he's literally fighting against these Mustafarians up the
Yes.
stairs, but he's also again this first step to really confronting his grandfather's legacy and the shadow and the pressure that comes with that, and that this whole journey really is. So this is the real kickoff to this comic book. Maybe that's why I felt like why I felt it was so abrupt, because we're just getting started now.
Exactly.
He goes in and like you said, he has he's his blood is able to let him in. This weird, very kind of, I don't know what kind of references those are, kind of like horror vibes, almost Klingon in some ways, but
most reminds me of what is it, the one movie with Pinhead, Hellraiser or something.
Sure.
Using blood to open up the holocron.
Very Indiana Jones kind of thing, right?
I've seen some fantasy stuff where they need blood to open the door.
Yeah, but I mean, it also refers, I think of on Malachor with not literally with blood, but the kind of thing that that Darth Maul, that Maul and Ezra do to get through lifting, just very Sith things, very Sithy things, and goes in, and again, the first person he encounters is Vane, who, just like before, with you showed to Cavan Scott's Tales of Vader's Castle and all the different places Vane has popped up. This guide who Kylo Ren, he says, I want to kill you. Why do you want to kill me? Because you're the past. And I go, the past die. And that's where, boom, the first person who does have the authority to tell Kylo Ren, why, you ignorant child. And he says, he convinces him. He says, show me. And it was just such a fitting thing to do, to have Vane there, to say, to be the threshold guardian. This is a Kylo Ren hero's journey story, and for Vane to be the threshold guardian, leading him through. I mean, I don't know if he's physically going to actually go to Tatooine with him, but leading him and showing him, what was Vader's story, at least from Vane's perspective. What was the story? Really, again, whetting our appetite, really getting us interested and intrigued. It reminds me of the fact that this comic, I mean, the brilliance of this premise is, Joel, we have you on here because it's definitely a sequel era story about Vader, who is, of course, the original trilogy villain. We're going to Tatooine and dealing with stuff in the prequel era, and everything. I'm certain Padme is going to come up in this. Can you imagine? Like, not certain, but you never certain. But come on, Grandma, we've never seen that before, right?
What wrong lessons will Kylo learn from his
exactly, but the best parts of the 2017 comic, right? I mean, that's the whole purpose of this tower, this castle, is for Vader to go back and actually get Padme back from the dead,
save her. Yeah,
and as an expression of how tied he is. That's the thing. How bound he is to the past. Of course, we know, and this Greg Pak did such a brilliant job of building up to this, that in this film in 1983, it's Padme's son who saves him. But that this is such an integral part of Vader's story of the loss of Padme, the betrayal of Padme. I'm really. Again, if Vane can show up, then anyone can show up. I mean, then it makes sense that he would show up here.
Well, we know who's showing up in next issue.
Yeah, that's well, that's where my mind is going. Right? Is if we know Watto's here,
actually, that actually brings up a great point. I hope I'm not speculating too much for next week, of course. But we're going to Tatooine. That must mean he does know he's Anakin Skywalker, and that must mean that. Kylo probably has to know what happened at the end, right? So do you think?
Bloodline.
Well, no, I mean, that's true. But does because I want to think of a talk when curious about is like, are we going with the TFA novelization of he knows that Vader turned to the light at the end, but thinks of that as Vader's one big failing in an otherwise
so.
outstanding career of evil.
I think that's. I mean, I think that's just part of Kylo's character. I think that's just. I mean, that's kind of in it. I mean, he's looking at the mask. I don't know. At least in my mind, that's part and parcel of what's driving him in this quest to understand his grandfather. I mean, obviously, yeah, he knows he's Anakin Skywalker. I mean, that's obvious, right?
All right, that was a big real duh. I forgot about that.
Yeah,
too.
but that's a great point. How does he think about that? What does he feel about that? You know, we don't need an Anakin Force vision, but we already have a Luke one. So Chris, I'll throw this to you about this last. We haven't given you any final thoughts about this last section here. Going into Vader's castle.
I always love going back to Mustafar, going back to Vader's castle, going to the good VR game, which is actually right behind my head here.
Oh yeah,
boom, got
Vader
that back
Immortal.
at Celebration in 2019 in Chicago. That was an awesome game that really showed you like the idea of this contraption Vader is building for Padme. We've seen a 2017 run of Vader. We've seen in 2016's Rogue One it showing up in live action for the first time. Such infamy around this location. So to see it for the first time in the sequel trilogy, see Vader's castle, I should say. We've seen Mustafar, which was weird because we're like, you go to Mustafar, it's just a bunch of burnt trees. We don't
might as well be somewhere else. Right?
Yeah, like really, you're gonna go here and not show the castle? You know, it's kind of odd. But no, this reminded me of that first scene in Rise of Skywalker with Kylo just mowing these guys down, and Luke. You get Luke Ross as an Idris to do something like this. You go back to the 2017, I think, Darth Maul run that he did with can't remember the writer for the Darth Maul miniseries, but. I remember seeing really good artwork and going, this guy's got a future for Star Wars, man. And here we go all those years later. And he's giving us the goods, man, with Kylo Ren just slaughtering these fools left and right. Such aggression, such fierceness represented on the comic book page. I love the use of the insets, the little squares, little focus points on different things, and just the brutality of his lightsaber fighting form is just awesome to see. And then you go to Vanya, which is another focal point within Vader's castle. We've even seen this guy appear in Lego specials and everything else, which has been great. But I've always been a huge fan of the Bomar monks, so I'm very curious about his backstory now. Did he get inspired by Bomar monks? Like, what happened with his head? Like, I need to know the backstory of what has happened in these 30 years. Like, the fall of Vader. Like, what happened to Vader's castle? There might have been something that in canon that has told us, like, okay, once Vader dies, like, it's dormant. Like, Vanya, what is he doing now? So I'm hoping we get more of that story in this. But it was interesting because we have this, you kill the past, but then it's like, no, don't kill the past. You got to actually use it for your power, essentially. And I had just gone back in preparation the day before, and I read the whole miniseries that Charles Soule did with Will Sliney on the 2019 run of The Rise of Kylo Ren. And such interesting stuff in that one with the fall of Ben Solo to the beginning of Kylo Ren. And now we're seeing Charles Soule beginning with him pure evil. I love looking at what Charles Soule has done with 2017's Vader taking place moments after he dons the suit. Yeah. And then in this, it's like moments after he becomes Supreme Leader, Kylo Ren. So he always does such a great job of like literally transitioning a live action story into a comic book story seamlessly without missing a beat. And this just makes it feel like enriched. I'm sure he's going to probably see the Eye of Webbish Bog at some point. It's also interesting because we are getting the Rise of Skywalker adaptation like the same month that we're getting this every month. Yeah, so it's going to be really cool because we're going to get like the entire story, right? You can read the Last Jedi novelization adaptation for the comic, which has been out for years, that you could go right into this one and then seemingly go right into the Rise of Skywalker adaptation comic. And you have like, you don't miss a minute basically of the entire sequel trilogy. You start with Poe Dameron series that goes into Force Awakens and even goes a little bit after Last Jedi. And then this. So it's pretty cool how we're going to get this entire era fleshed out by the end of it, you know?
Poe Dameron by Charles Soule.
Yep.
The Rise of Skywalker adaptation, Jody Hauser, art by Will Sliney. I'll throw that out. Darth Maul is written by Cullen Bunn.
Will Sliney's doing the artwork for Rise of Skywalker, huh?
And covers
That's so crazy because I was just mentioning him.
Yeah, and also comic panels. That's the word I was looking for. Is panels, but also love how unorthodox a lot of the panels are. Yeah, think about Vane again. Just going back to that thought. Yeah, would be very curious to know the backstory. It definitely, to say you're do the Futurama thing where you're a floating head in a jar there. This, also like Maul, right? Holding on to life for dear life through the dark side, just refusing to submit to the natural order of things with through death, and holding on to the past. And that's that's what that image of he's still alive and he's still in this machine thing now. That's what that evokes for me, and I think that's probably what the idea behind it is. Why he's not just still there, or not even in a chair, moving around, but just his head. It's a weird, almost grotesque type of thing. So, yeah, definitely. That's the most substantive bit we get in this little moment at the end here. Definitely really intriguing. Joel, any more thoughts on this last section?
Yeah, I really like the moment. I feel like the guy shooting at Kylo are a thing, and there's a lore behind them, and like one of the visual dictionaries. I don't remember what they were. I think they're like cultist, or something. I love the little moment where the arrow is just like right by his eyeball. It's always one of those disturbing things. They're like, oh god, get that pointy thing away from me. Like even I think about it, like, oh, that's a good moment.
Oh man,
Yeah. It's cool seeing Vane. I always pronounce it Vane. That's how I've always pronounced it. Because he's a mysterious guy. Like he there's no real story with him. It just kind of is like, oh, that's Vader's house's caretaker. He's weird. He gets made fun of. He's made fun of a lot in the Lego stuff, which I always like. Which I think they have a pronouncement for that, where they think like Vane or something.
Yeah.
But no, I don't know if we'll get a backstory what happened to his body. I just definitely striking imagery for sure. It's gonna be interesting. I think one of the thematic elements of, if not this comic, well, probably this whole comic to some extent, but definitely this arc is, what is Kylo's lesson to be learned about the path? Is he gonna embrace Vane's, no, you need the past to fuel your power, or is he gonna embrace the past must be wiped away, and I will strip myself clean of it? Obviously Kylo's whole thing is always learn the wrong lesson until he finally learns the right one. So I am kind of curious in terms of what is the wrong lesson he's going to learn here, and even if he won't embrace Vane by the end, or if he will just kind of off him too. It's very interesting, and I'm kind of curious what he takes away from going to Tatooine and seeing old Anakin's sandy stomping grounds. But yeah, I love the final moment on Mustafar. It was really cool. Yeah, it's a little short. That's again, I can agree. This comic short, but it's an ongoing. I think I will enjoy it the most when we finally get a trade. But it's far from terrible. Of course, it was a great starter. Yeah, and I have a feeling this arc will probably be very Kylo focused. I don't expect a lot of first order shenanigans quite yet.
Yeah, I think that's gonna be true for most of this comic. Actually, I think it's. Everything you gotta be very disciplined. Talked about this on Monday, right? Discipline with point of view and focus. Yeah, it is. Again, it's entirely about Vader through Kylo Ren's eyes. We'll see how long that premise can hold. Can it hold for 25 issues? Can it hold for 30 whatever issues? Maybe different nooks and crannies that it goes through. So it's possible. Again, Anakin through Vader's eyes took Charles Soule 25 issues, and it was perfect. It's the greatest comic I've ever read. So, my favorite comic book. So, yeah, good. I mean, that helped by having the whole set piece at the end with the castle. Maybe there can be some set pieces in terms of the Wayfinder and things like that. Vader's Wayfinder, that's the thing. That's what he's doing on Mustafar at the beginning of the film, right? He's getting his grandpa's way to Exegol. So yeah, definitely gonna have some Exegol vibes here. Yeah, Joel, it's a great point. What is the wrong question? What is the wrong lesson? What is the lesson? Almost implicitly, then what is the right lesson that he finally gets to in Rise of Skywalker? And I do think this comic will be incredibly disciplined, focused on Rise of Skywalker. We love the whole cast, Vader's Castle. Just thinking about this now, though, we love that whole Vader's Castle moment. It felt abrupt, sure. It was simply functional. It really was about this dialogue with Vane. I think almost it was quick because Kylo Ren, he wants to explore the past. Yeah, he thinks he has to kill it. We know he's a history nerd. You know why he keeps the mask. He's modeled his own mask after his grandfather. He uses a mask, even though Snoke thinks he shouldn't. Because it's a Sith thing. It's a dark side thing. He's not technically a Sith, but he's kind of obsessed with the whole lore of the Sith. So probably gonna have some moment in there. Wouldn't surprise me either. But yeah, I looking forward to what happens throughout this thing. Again, this is going to be one of the great books. I think. I hope it goes on. One last thing I'll say is, then what a great start to this comic. What a fantastic. Just if we say, as a single issue, we can't really, like I guess what you guys are saying, we can't really fully judge it as just a comic on its own. It's just the first chapter in who knows how many chapters. So, what a way to start.
I'll be curious to see what the in-universe time span is for this comic. I can definitely see a situation where we might have arcs where like some time has passed, and then like we can say, hey, remember that stuff on Batu and all that went down? It's like Kylo Ren, like, I don't want to talk about it. I had to fight Rey, and there were people there watching and eating churros. I'm kidding, but I am kind of curious, like how much in-universe time will pass. Will it be the full year, and then the last arc is my and Chris's hope is we can hear the Palpatine speech. And it's like, okay, go back to Mustafar and check out the technical stuff. That won't, leading right to Rise of Skywalker, or will it be like this is like 2 months, 2 to 3 months, before that year? I'm leaning towards the whole year with breaks in between arcs to just kind of say, and then that stuff in that other comics and books happen. But that's my hope, at least.
I mean, kind of like what Battle of Jakku did, a little bit.
More like the Vader 2017 did.
Yeah, that too. But I mean, Battle of Jakku was pretty marked in that kind of thing, and it's also in recent memory. But yeah, I mean, I hope it's more than 12 issues. I mean, Battle of Jakku could have been at least maybe 15, 20 issues. But yeah, Chris, do you have any further thoughts, final thoughts on Legacy of Vader #1?
Yeah, this is an important moment in Star Wars storytelling for the fact that we are now completely with the sequel trilogy behind us, several years at this point. So now Charles Soule has the whole playground to play. There is no going back and forth with story groups saying, "Oh, we got to use this in the movie coming up. We can't even go near that." Now with the scripts being worked on for the upcoming movies that take place like 15 years after The Rise of Skywalker, and Sean Levy's movie, which is rumored to be after that, like this is going to be great to see a lot of new things like Tatooine in the sequel trilogy, or we didn't really get to see Maz Eisley or Maz Espa or wherever. We're going to go to Maz Espa, pretty sure the next issue is said. So really cool stuff with the overall lore of Star Wars, really building out the First Order, because that's the biggest thing for me is like, okay, the Empire was this huge thing that lasted about 20 years, or no, 25, or about 23, 25 years, something like that. First Order was around for a year, but it took the galaxy by storm very, very quickly. We didn't really get to see how that came to be for the most part. So with a longer term storytelling, I hopefully get more from Hux. So from the what's the guy's name in Rise of Skywalker we were talking about before? Pride.
Yeah.
Yes. Maybe we'll see more Pride, like what the infrastructure of the First Order is itself. Learning more about the First Order, hopefully we are dealing with the villains here. So that's one of the biggest things for me in the sequel trilogy was like, oh, these guys came out of nowhere. They're basically Empire. Like we didn't really learn enough about them. So I'm hoping to get more details on that. But Kylo Ren is he's a very popular character and he's very nuanced. So I think this is a good way to go with telling a story focused on him, but from the vantage point of the bad guys overall, hopefully.
There you go. Can't wait. We have to wait a whole darn month. Can't wait. But yeah, definitely good job. Also, yeah, this was great to go through a comic in this much detail. Last week, there's no chance we could have done that. So nice. There's only one book this week to dive in, go all the way through like that. Yeah, maybe in a few weeks, I think we'll do the same thing for Jedi Knights #1. Comes out in a few weeks. So.
Yeah, the High Republic, Fear of the Jedi #1 as well.
Yes, Fear of the Jedi #1 coming out very soon. So there's a good segue because we do have another story to talk about. Not too much. I would like to do a little more detail at some point, but as promised, Lourna turns to the light. We're going to do a bit of an Iron Cannon sort of look at Cavan Scott's Tempest Breaker audio play. Of course, written by Cavan Scott with a full audio cast. Trying to think about how we want to do this. I think maybe we want to just focus on maybe overall thoughts.
Yeah.
How it maybe continues the comic book story. So talk about Lourna, talk about Kiev, talk about Bulan, and talk about Markian, because those seem to be the key anchor points here. And first off, yeah, it was. And maybe talking about Lourna, and then by way of talking about everyone else, first of all, so Lourna Dee, again voiced by Jessica Almasy, and brilliant. Just I love that voice, that accent,
that French accent,
Like it's now iconic. It's almost iconic in my ears, right? It's just Lourna Dee, but this is her turning to the light as best she can, and that's set up with this framing device with this interview with Real Dyro, voiced by Kristen Sieh, and it's after the fact, right? It's say this part of this agreement with Lena So that you're going to help us out is you're going to do this interview and tell your story here. That telegraphs the fact that she's, again, to the best of her ability, I'll repeat that a few times, as full as she's able to take part in the Republic and the Jedi effort in tackling the Blight and dealing with denial. I really love the way it picks up on. So yeah, it definitely continues the comic book story, but it really also picks up on Tempest Breaker or Tempest Runner, as this audio play duology. And Cavan did a great job. I mean, all these characters he developed specifically for this audio play, especially Muglan and Quinn. And I found it very poignant with Muglan, voiced by January Lavoie, and Quinn, and how Lourna had abandoned them to this planet. They were, she kind of brought them under. Lourna brought them under her wing. Kind of part of this Tempest, raised Quinn up. It's part of a storm, effectively in this prison ship, and then drops them off and leaves because Lourna just can't handle attachments and is afraid of getting Quinn hurt, and how that comes to roost with Muglan, leading this rival group, but then ultimately in this confrontation with Muglan and how her death is this moment that pricks Lourna's conscience and brings her to say, oh, does this have to be this way? Quinn, in a similar way, really the angel on her shoulder, right? And this is a real romance, a real love connection that Lourna has, and that's why she shuts it down, because she can't handle it. But then Quinn is able to forgive her and come back and be this driving force for Lourna actually to see good in the galaxy. Let's say here's this other person I can help make the galaxy a better place, more livable place to be in. I also think Lourna is oddly impressed what we see in the comic book continuation of the comic book story. She's more and more impressed by Keeve, especially. We'll get into Keeve a little bit, but they're actually in this era, Jedi in this era are really working to take care of people in the galaxy. That does involve resisting the Nile and trying to solve the Blight and trying to solve the Nameless. They're vulnerable to the Nameless. Avar really there. That's kind of her purpose there. And so, but Lourna, again, impressed, I think, and saying, oh, there's this model of, they actually can work as a team. There could be this team. And so that at the end, there is this sort of resolution. Again, as best as she's able, fully as she can, she gets this gang together with Quinn and Tesseract, and as we saw in dispatches from the Occlusion Zone last week, has this Tempest Breakers guild, just technically a bounty hunter guild, but really they're in with the Republic. They have a part to play in this, and so that really sets that up. Chris, as best you can, I throw this to you. What do you think of just Lourna's arc, the main character's arc through this audio play?
Yeah, I thought it was basically what I expected. I do think that this was that's my problem with this story, is it was very predictable. It didn't really shock me that much. It was very telegraphed, very by the numbers, a character going here, a character going here. It didn't throw me enough for a loop. So that was my big negative for this overall thing, and had to do with Lourna's journey as well. I like the setup. I like how the framework of this thing is designed, where it's okay, we have this reporter reporting her and interrogating her about this information, blah, blah, blah. We're going back into her past and all that. But as far as her character, it was fine for me. I didn't really see as much as I wanted to. We're going to get more of her in the next comic book series. From what I could gather, I really did enjoy the production value of this whole thing. I feel like this is the best outing yet for Lucasfilm, for Penguin House Audio. Some of the stuff there, I could talk more. Like I said, I'll be honest with everybody listening. I haven't listened to this thing in a long time, so I'm very hazy on this story. Right? I could talk more about technical things than I can about story points. So I'll stick to my guns on this, and I'll say the voice acting was really top notch. Right. I think that having this full cast really sets it aside. I mean, we've been getting some of those Disney Lucasfilm publishing little stories, which are head scratchers, because they come out of nowhere with no promotion, and I feel like no one really talks about them because of that. So, but those things are juvenile compared to what Penguin Random House Audio does. I love the use of licensed Star Wars music. I love all the use of the background din when you're listening to the different things in the background. You feel like you're in these different environments. As far as the stereo mix, fantastic stuff there. This is just all effort goes in on making this the movie that's playing in your head when you close your eyes. You can just sit there. I'm sitting here just imagining these things happening around me, and that's the coolest part, to be transported to the galaxy with audio. And I keep saying, there's a lot of other companies and a lot of other IP that are leveraging using podcasts long form for a lot of their stories to enhance them. And it's great that Star Wars is kind of leading the charge with the quality overall. Now, I will say that there are points in this story where I did get actually confused about what was happening, because when you have 4 or more characters in a group talking very quickly in an action sequence, I did get disoriented. I'm like, is that character? Is that Tesseric, or is that somebody else? And that's one thing that stuck out to me. We're like, oh crap, like that got to be, because some of the accents for me, some of the British accents do kind of sound very similar when there's the same people are talking, and you don't have a narrator that's saying Tesseric said this or blah blah blah. So I'm like losing some story points in translation when that happens, but it was very rare. It was like 1 or 2 times in the story, but overall, from a technical standpoint, this was very, very enjoyable.
Yeah, with Tesseract, rule of thumb: if it sounds like it's straight out of a Doctor Who story, it's probably him. That's what my mind goes to. I haven't actually listened to any Doctor Who audiobooks, but we know Cavan's a Doctor Who guy. It just sounded kind of like that. I will say, I mean, one of the highest praises that came out of this, I remember on the internet, was it felt like you were listening to a movie. Like you said, it again, we use this word a lot, cinematic. This one really had that feel and that push through the story, which I agree that with Lourna, we knew what was gonna happen. We knew where she was gonna go. Maybe it would have been more interesting if there was more bends, twists, and turns. But I mean, I found the other 3 characters that we're gonna get into actually more interesting, maybe more important, oddly enough. So Lourna's kind of there pushing the story forward. I mean, with Keeve, Bullen, and Markian are also bigger than just this audiobook and bigger than even the comic book. They're they're on the cover. They're going to be on the cover, or they're in Trials of the Jedi, right? So, the whole publishing initiative. But Joel, those to you specifically about Lourna's story, Lourna's arc. What stood out to you? What do you think of it?
Oh, I loved it. It made me realize the High Republic needs a Han Solo. I actually find a lot of the Jedi characters very annoying and kind of bland. They're always about the light and the blah blah blah. It's like you need a Han Solo to balance it out. Just say like enough with the piracy. You need to get the blaster and start shooting. No, I enjoy it. I thought this was fun. It was short. That was also nice. Got through it really quick. I really liked the flashbacks, just kind of setting it all up. I'm glad they got Mark Thompson to do his Marcion Rowe voice instead of get somebody else. At this point, I'm so associated his Marcion voice at this point with the character. It's like that's what I hear. So I'm like, I'm glad they didn't try to get somebody else. They just got Mark Thompson to do that Marcion voice. I love it. So that was fun. Yeah, I thought. I mean, I wasn't really going in expecting anything, so I sort of was like, oh no, this is cool. And then just the Lourna Dee's now part of the gang, so it was cool. And I also felt the ending was very Rise of Skywalker inspired because another people's fleet coming to help out the Nile. That's another thing I took away from it. So yeah, overall I was able to follow it pretty well, even though I haven't read any of the comics at all.
Right.
And I think the one twist I had was I thought the doctor guy was really going to be a good guy. Then he was like, oh no, he's not.
Yeah. I was a little mad that did not happen. Darn it.
So, Joe, you bring that up because I mean, there's the framing device. Also, that first act. And Chris, you and I were probably like, okay, we've read this comic book already. Come on, let's get through this already.
Yeah.
But for folks like Joel and others who hadn't read the comic book,
I'm sure there's probably a lot more.
Yeah. I mean, how'd you feel about that whole chunk of just getting us all caught up with what's happened so far? Did you find that engaging? Did you find that helpful?
Or me or Chris?
Joel.
I found that helpful. I really liked it. Especially because I don't think I read a lot of Phase 1 anyway. So like I
True.
So like the whole Marcion speech at the destruction of Starlight Beacon. I don't remember that. It was cool seeing that moment where he just kind of makes his big old speech to the galaxy. That was cool. Just because it's Mark Thompson doing the voice. That was neat. I didn't know about that side of things. And I don't know. I mean, in the whole she abandons her kind of girlfriend friend. That
was new to us too. So
Oh, okay, that was new. I wasn't sure what
Yeah.
I don't see it. I don't know what's new or what's different. So, I mean, I think I knew the Starlight Beacon thing, obviously, because I always knew that Starlight Beacon
Yeah.
got blown up. But I liked seeing that moment. I thought that was like, oh, this is a pivotal moment here, and it was like they were big and epic, and Marcion Rose giving his like, I'm the real bad guy here. I am the real star of this picture. So no, I didn't feel I felt like I was caught up and was able to follow everything. I even the stuff with Skier I knew about, so I was able to follow that pretty well as well. Even though I did not know about the girl that he was taking care of.
Yeah,
I know he was going nuts, and I was like, oh, I hope they can fix him because I feel so bad for Skier. It's like he wants to do good by this little girl, and I like when they're meditating. That was a nice little moment.
Oh man, I gotta give credit to Mark Thompson with the
Again.
Skier voice, because that was like, my gosh, that guy must have had some kind of treatment for his vocal cords doing that voice, because when he was screaming, like just vehemently, like just harshly on his vocal cords, this is freaking Trandoshan. I was like, this guy's earning his paycheck, man. This is some really, really top-notch voice acting here.
He continues to be the best of the best. Like we're focusing on 3 characters. These are 3 different characters that he did. You get Skier, Ro, and Bulan, right? And all 3 of them, we can also bring in Skier here as well. All 3 of them are the ones who pull the story forward. In Lourna and Kiev are pulled by Skier and especially Markian, but also Bulan a little bit. Pulled forward. Joel, you want to bring up this this quote here, this mantra that Skier has, because it's amazing. He has McGrath syndrome where he's less susceptible. Well, he can't connect to the Force. Oddly enough, makes him less susceptible to the Nameless, and we'll get into why that's important for Bulan in a minute. But it shows he can still be a Jedi. And when Bulan actually heals him, it's almost as if the Force is rewarding his commitment to the ideals of the Jedi. He has this mantra: we walk into the light, we acknowledge the dark. And that's another fascinating. We walk into the light, we acknowledge the dark, and we find balance. And that, all through, especially phase 1 into phase 3, is he going to turn to the dark side here? Is he going to go full Trandoshan here? And Joel, I'll turn this to you while you want to bring this on up, but acknowledge the dark. By trying to snuff it out, we give it power. Again, with the Yoda arc in Clone Wars season 6, right?
Yeah, I just felt that quote just pretty much just summarized the Yoda arc in like a single sentence.
Yeah.
I think it's probably truer to George's own view of balance of the Force than a lot of the quotes. So I liked it. I don't know why it just stood out to me. But I actually did really like Skier. I thought Skier was a very tragic character. Very, very almost a little Beauty and the Beast, but if it were like a little kid instead of a full-on adult lady.
Yeah. And go back to a comment you made before about needing a Han Solo character and how a Jedi always about the light and the order and everything.
We have civilians.
Yeah. But then we have the Cavan Scott character, Keith Trennis, who I'm continuing to track over and over. She's more or less being there. She's the main character in phase 3 comics. I think Lourna's there too.
Yeah.
But she's gives Lourna this another chance of redemption. Also to note how Master Kiev, she's equal with Avar here. She says, I'm doing this. Here's my plan. I'm gonna go. And Avar comes along most of all. And this is the moment I've been waiting 4 years for, right? Of this whole darn publishing initiative. The explicit moment she starts to question the Jedi. Specifically, here's the thing with Skier. Avar saying we can't sacrifice one even a master for this mercy mission, and that just sets Kiev off and spinning to say, if we aren't willing to go and take care of our people, is this the kind of Jedi I want to be? That turns a blind eye to this? Is this the kind of order that I want to exist? or will it even make room for me, the kind of Jedi I want to be? And she's a master. She can't really be a way seeker anymore. That's probably one of the implications here. Yeah, we got Bell, who's able to go off and kind of the missions along the occlusions along the storm wall there, but this is a real moment of doubt and questioning. Obviously very different from, say, Dooku, who, I mean, Dooku in a way not that as different, in the sense
Dooku was always kind of evil and snobby.
Yeah, that's the thing. And even with in Tales of the Jedi there, he's still, or Tales of the Empire, whichever it was.
Jedi.
Yeah, Tales of the Jedi. He starts off with some sort of questioning about the Republic and the Clone Wars, but he ends up at Palpatine's feet, right? With Keeve, it's what I had hoped for. That's the thing. It's predictable. It's kind of what I hoped for, but to actually get it and to get the real, emotionally gripping circumstances of this, her master, who she's had this connection to, who she's constantly, all through the comics, trying to do what she can for him and holding out that he'll get better, and that the Order's starting to shut that down. And it's this moment of is this the right path? Is this the way to go? And I mean, that's the thing. We know where this ends up, but it's not the same place it ends up with Dooku, for just to go and take back his family house. It's to go and be who she needs to be in the galaxy, and it's going to be tragic. It's going to be way more tragic than Lula. There's a Padawan. This is a master saying the Order is gone, is not what it once was. And so really gripping. The thing I mentioned before, Lourna sees that and she's impressed. She's impressed that, first of all, she's impressed, maybe not so much that the Order has room for Keeve, because it doesn't necessarily, Avar passes on this whole Light of the Jedi title to her, and she does
Marshal.
She's the Marshal of the fleet, what we see
that's huge
in the comics. All this responsibility, and she's still able to not let it get to her head. She's still able to hold on to the questions and to doubt and be able to give it up. Ultimately, I think Lourna is really impressed by that, and impressed by her ability to actually show compassion and care for her friend. Again, I wonder if Lourna says, can she do that for Quinn? Can she start to say, okay, I'm going to make this galaxy a better place for Quinn, for others? Maybe the Order as an institution, I don't know if they're onto something, but at least there's these folks who are trying to take care of this huge problem in the galaxy. Can I sign up? Can I be part of it? So again, because this is a Lourna story, but it does what it needs to do for Keeve as well, that we're going to see in Fear of the Jedi. So Chris, again, I'll throw this to you. What do you think of Keeve's story and how it fits with what we know, where she's going, and with the rest of just the High Republic materials so far?
Yeah, no, I'll piggyback off what you said. The disillusionment with the Jedi these days, I think, is a huge thing that's gonna, again, show trajectory based on the Dooku Jedi Lost audio drama, also by Cavan Scott, that shows like, oh yeah, the Lost 20, and she's one of them. So we're getting closer to figuring out why she decides to leave, what that choice could come from. But yeah, tennis is the Light of the Jedi. I like that. It's bringing us back to the very first entry of the High Republic. We're coming around full circle now at the end. This is just, we are in February. This will all be done by June. Got that nice cover the other last week about the Trials of the Jedi. But that whole relationship that she has with the Master Steer, really good stuff there. And getting into, like I said, there's a lot of stuff that's happening with her becoming that Marshal. Does she even want to do that? Is that really something she's interested in? I guess we'll figure that out in at the end of the month here when we get the stories that continue what she's going to be doing with the strike force that she's forming and all. But yeah, I mean, I do like this character a lot. It's great that we have so much content that's around her, whether it be the comics, whether it be the novel. Well, we don't really see her in a novel, but I mean, these might as well be novels, right?
Trials of the Jedi also. She's got to be in that.
Oh yeah, for sure. So yeah, overall, I don't have too much to add on her, but yeah, I do like I do like where she started, I like where she ends up for sure.
Joel, you haven't maybe not as familiar with her story, but anything in this specific one strike you?
I don't remember too much about that part. I do remember her.
I was looking for it. That's why it probably sticks in my craw. But
I remember her just wanting for Skier to get better. That's for sure. Not wanting to just leave him there. So yeah, and of course I remember. Who was it? Avar who didn't want to do the plan, or was it sure they didn't want to do the plan where they go to the fancy ball?
I mean, Avar was probably like, "What are we doing? Why are we doing this?" I don't know. I can see.
I remember somebody did not want to wear a fancy dress.
Yeah.
I
don't know. Avar probably likes to glam up, so I don't know. There we go. Yeah, it could have been Keeve. Anyway, very quickly, this is probably another really interesting character. We've mentioned him quite a few times from the comic book. Continuing on, Baron Bulan. He goes through a journey in this one as well. He is one of the kind of articles I used to jog my memory for this book, this audio play, called him the MacGuffin of the story, in the sense they're trying to get to him because they maybe have might have the cure to the blight and all that. I love that. It just, speaking of coming full circle, we go back to phase 2 with this guy. We go to Dalna, and he's sheds these pretensions, for he was going along because Markian was funding him and really getting the Nameless going here, but he was getting progressively marginal with these experiments, right? It was just, that crazy old scientist, what's he up to? What's this alchemy do? What's he doing with his alchemy? Basically, goes back to the caves on Dalna, and where the path of the open hand emerges, where the path of the closed fist emerges. You see, his father was part of this idyllic farming community, farming cult, and he fully commits to it. Like, again, as we saw in the annual last week, the force shall be free. The force shall be free. He's definitely bought in fully to that ideology, and that's his whole goal, his whole end game is to basically use the research he's done on Skier to rid the galaxy of force users, basically. And he's just we think Markian is obsessed with Markian. Bulan is possessed by this mission that is incredibly, from the path, the path of the open hand was possessed by this mission in a lot of ways. Chris, I'll throw this to you quickly. With Bulan, you said you wanted him to turn to the light as well, and he doesn't, and that disappointed you. What did you think of Bulan's story?
Yeah, I thought it was really good. It was really enticing, and the way it was written, I actually thought that, oh man, like, this guy actually is turning another leaf.
Yeah,
I want to see redemption in this guy, and we just didn't get there. Darn it!
So you were gladly disappointed because it was a good story, is what you mean?
Yeah. It's like, it was interesting because Bulan's basically like, well, everybody has the force, so everybody will die. Yeah. like Bulan didn't really know that all this would bring on the galaxy, like throwing around this technology and whatnot.
Yeah,
and you don't have the respect for it necessarily, and it's something. But it's interesting because I wrote down my note. I'm trying to read my notes as we're going through here because it's been 2 months. But I wrote down Bulan makes a curse for force sensitives through the blight.
Right.
it goes with his gripe against the Jedi killing his father Donald during the Night of Sorrow. That's what I wrote. It's just it's very cool stuff that we're tying into, like you said, phase 2, going back. He was there, all this good stuff, showing the 150 years of vengeance that this character has been plotting for, the long term, the long journey here, and he got so close to pulling it off.
I mean, I'm always fascinated by just these phase 2 references, characters, motivations, right? I mean, we had Tay Surik in the glove, and trying to not be so possessed by the glove. Here, Mulan is a fanatic for this ideology, that the path of the closed fist, that is part of at the origins of the Nile, of course. But I mean, I don't know if he'll serve to call the Nile back to where they come from. Probably not. He's probably off on his own. But it's an interesting, intriguing reminder that at their heart, at their core, is this incredibly, weirdly, fascinatingly toxic ideology. The Force will be free, gifts freely given, right? And we remember on Jeddah how that went. So speaking of audio plays, so there. Joel, I'll throw this to you quickly with Bulan. Now that you have a sense of what his story is, what do you think of just in this one? How his arc went?
Yeah, it was cool to see the phase 2 stuff come back. It really kind of shows that this guy's maybe even scarier than Marcion Rowe. I think Marcion Rowe has a limit to how far he's going to go in his destruction. It's like Marcion Rowe going to make sure Marcion Rowe lives to see another day. This guy's like, nah, everything got to burn, all go down. You got even a little bit of force. You got to go. Goodbye, world. Darth Cray would be proud. It really kind of interesting. It's like how kind of far from the past the Nile have gone from these weird anti-force cultists, just plain old pirates and brigands, to this guy who's like holding on to truths that the Force will be free. He believes in the words and he's gonna do something about it. And I wonder how that might factor in as we near the finale. It's like, I've always kind of wondered, like, is Marcion Rowe just kind of doing his thing for his own sake? While, like, this guy believes in something grander than himself, and he will die for it. He is willing to die for a belief, while Marcion Rowe is like, I'm just Marcion Rowe. I'm kind of just an egotistical little jerk.
Yeah.
But it's like, I don't want to sacrifice my own life. I'm out here. So yeah, I really like that, and I thought that was kind of creepy and cool at the same time. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, definitely serves as a fantastic contrast to Marcion. I'm kind of glad we actually have this accidental overlay with the Iron Cannon logo here, because Marcion, really interesting moment here in that, just go to him, and again, another character by Mark Thompson. Good grief. Lourna finally gets under his skin, really makes him vulnerable. This chink in the armor. He's begging her at one point at the end there. There's the fun dance. He shows up, that party, that famous party. That was actually really, really amazing scene. In charge, all these pleasantries with this planet, but they're really there to take over. And yet at the end with this confrontation, he's hit, he's down. He's chastened. Is he chastened? This is the question. Is he chastened, or is he a rabid cur? It's kind of another rabid cur, right?
Oh my gosh.
But I brought up last week, Joe, like you said, there's these limits, and he's kind of what we're seeing here is the implosion, the self-defeating, the one person who's really going to defeat Marcion. Interesting, on Monday we talked about this, how in Trials of the Jedi, for example, how Marcion's end happens. I think it's got to be through Marcion somehow. He's got to just collapse into loathing and angst or something, while the Jedi are just there, maybe trying to lend a hand, gift freely given, and he's just not willing to take it. That might be how it happens, because he seems too strong, but also it seems in this, right, he's really just bitter and angst, and just not being as successful. And especially this could be especially the case when we got to Echoes of Fear last week, and they have the Rod of Ages. They have a way to separate him from the Nameless. What's that going to do? So the thing with Markian in this audio play, it really gets us thinking in those directions, and says, okay, this made it go from not just the comics and the kind of corner, and in the High Republic, everything feeds into everything and plays into everything, but there are some things that are the main through line, and with Markian especially here, this audio play hit the main through line because Markian is the big bad, right? And his defeat, probably by himself, is how the whole story resolves itself in a way. And so this definitely feels, it's what sets this audio play. This is the start of the last bit of the High Republic.
Mm-hmm.
This is the beginning of the end. This audio play, it just sets the definitive course for the end of the whole publishing initiative. And so it really made it feel bigger, and have Lourna's role in this, getting under his skin, being the one to knock the chink in the armor. Again, we'll see. She's gonna probably just be mainly in this comic book, but really made it feel bigger and feel so definitive and decisive for the whole publishing initiative. So again, credit to Cavan Scott for plotting this through and everything, and the whole, again, Project Luminous. I think they've done such a fantastic job in connecting everything. Nothing's perfect, but they've done such a fantastic job. So Chris, again, I'll throw this to you. Markian and his character and connections to the whole publishing initiative.
Okay, as far as this one's concerned,
Jogging your memory there.
Yeah, it's exactly what I'm trying to tread water here. I feel like I'm trying to pass an exam without having studied at all for it. So that's exactly what I'm going through right now.
I remember some moments if you want.
I don't know. My notes did not really explain a lot with Markian. I did not do a good enough job with my notes on that one. I did pick out. Okay, so something about Markian killed his father. Was that true, or is that not? Because I still feel like that's murky. Sometimes it's described as Lourna did it, but then it's no, he killed Ascar Rowe. That's one note I have here.
Yeah, fair. Joel, you want to jump in there for Markian?
Oh, I was going to give Chris some time to remember if you want. I think one of my favorite little moments is, which is funny, because here I can tie in our two books together. The party. Because, Markion's kind of weirdly in a similar place where Kylo is right now, where it's he's got to be the leader of a faction, and he's got to go to these fancy dinner parties, and you just tell, I hate this. Can I just kill you all now? And then when he hit the chance, it's just blow it all up. I don't care. This is sort of why the Nile will never be an empire, and while he's not a great political operator, because he's he'll just revert back to just blow it all up. There's no savviness to it. Once he's conquered it, he doesn't really know what to do with it. Shoot, I am the dog who caught the car. I don't know what to do with myself. I don't even have a bureaucracy I could just use like Palpatine does. So I like that moment. And I do remember a little bit of the ending where even he's like, Bolin's gotta destroy us all if we don't stop him. And it's there is a limit to this guy's craziness. He is not a nihilist. Aha, there we go. Play on words, right? Where, I think a real nihilist will be totally willing. Just let the world burn. Who cares? You all suck anyway. He's at the very least, I don't want to die. I don't want this to happen to me. So he's we got to stop this guy because this guy is crazy. Those are kind of the two kind of big things I took away from Marcy on Rowe.
It's a good point. I mean, he's alienated Gira Staros at this point. I mean, I don't know. I don't quite remember. I think she's still sort of in cahoots a little bit, but she was trying to make an infrastructure. She was trying to make a government, and he just kicked her to the curb. Not maybe fully, but you know, at least effectively. So that it's true. He is looking out for number one at the very least. So who knows? Maybe that'll be the way he resolves it. Just to think about this fact, you know, the main focus is, especially with Trials of the Jedi, going to Planet X, getting the Namulus back to Planet X. That's the end of High Republic, right? Maybe Bulin is going to be the more prominent force here, because he's the one who's wants the Nameless to be the ones wreaking havoc. He's the one with the connection to the Nameless. He's the one with the know-how, and to see his motivations, maybe that's kind of what's happening here. I don't know. I mean, it feels kind of odd for Markian to not be the big bad, but what if that ends up what's happening? Especially here, we see Markian the limits of his evil. Just saying, okay, the limits of his evil on a galactic scale, whereas Bulin, his limits get blown off the roof. You know, we see him in that prison cell counting the days, like the Force will be free. The Force will be free. And this is in the annual last week.
Marcion is loyal to Marcion. Bolin's loyal to an idea.
Yeah,
that makes him kind of scary.
It makes him more dangerous. That's true. He is a fanatic at this point. So there we go. It'll be interesting to see what Niv Drendro, what his role in that is. He has people he can turn to bring into his cause. So it's things to think about. I don't know, Chris, if you have any further thoughts on all that.
Yeah, no, with the Nameless, Planet X is the flashpoint. I read the synopsis for Trials of the Jedi, and there's some stuff that's going to happen there. So it makes sense. Bulan is that wild card that is not exactly in perfect alliance with Markion as one of the ministers of advancement and technology, whatever his title is. So
dumb title. No, intentionally dumb. It was great. It's hilarious, but yeah.
But no, he's a cool villain. I like the idea that he's a Sathorian mad scientist, and we've seen last week in the annual, we got a story about him, like how he's reconfiguring people that are force sensitive to be these children of the storm that have the blood of Nameless inside of them, like that Frankenstein kind of mad scientist doctor that, you know, that's definitely in Cavan Scott's wheelhouse to create a character like that. A lot of his comics harken back to the Hammer horror film days, like Dracula and all those Frankenstein, all those different things. So, you know, to have this guy going stopped in prison, he's in Coruscant right now. You'd imagine he's going to get broken out at some point, or, you know, it's going to be the wild card. He could be, maybe he does end up being a good guy like I thought he could be at the end of this. So,
yeah. And I mean, I wish they told us who wrote these stories in this annual. I'm guessing, was that the Cavan story?
Had to have been.
It had to have been, yeah. Given how he continues, that would make sense. Continuing from the comic, from this audio play, that'll be fascinating. Fascinating to see people as the big bad, the big bad all along, going all the way from Phase 2. This kid from Phase 2 is now the big obstacle for the Jedi to expiate and heal the Nameless. These poor dogs just miss their home. They're just starving. They miss their home. Literally, that's actually what it is.
Yeah, it's literally the story.
And no, Bulin wants to use them to wreak havoc on the galaxy, or to cleanse the galaxy of the Force. Is it? So, again, all this work to be done in this audio play, it was 6 hours. I think it was impressive. Again, it's probably why Lourna's story isn't as complicated as good, because all these other things happening around her that she's guiding the story through. So I think that's good for now. I mean, I guess we could have gone into a bit more detail, but I think we did. We covered. I feel satiated. I feel satisfied that we covered Tempest Breaker by Cavan Scott. Joel, I'll throw this to you. Any final thoughts on this audio drama?
No, I liked it. I like audio dramas. There's something about without the prose which I enjoy a lot more.
Yeah.
Maybe because I just like movies. No, I liked it. I loved to hear Mark Thompson do his voices.
Yeah.
I love the party scene. Boolin was crazy but fun, and it was cool seeing. I like Lourna Dee quite a lot. I hope we see her again.
See, I can't wait. Whatever the next full cast adult audio play is, it won't be High Republic because it's done. It's gonna be done. But whatever the next one is, they've got to do one. They should do one a year because it's so great and so done. And it's probably not that difficult. Obviously, it's a lot of work, but especially for Mark Thompson. But in terms of resources, financially, it's probably not that difficult to do. So I hope they can do one a year. At least they've done one per phase in High Republic. So they've done 5 now, including the
Dr. Aphra. And you also have
speaking
the
of comic
Dooku.
books, Dr. Aphra. Yeah, the Dooku as well. So yeah, let's do more of these. Get more of these because it's like a movie. I don't know. Let's continue the Acolyte season 2, but as an audio drama. Maybe not with the same cast because that will be too expensive. But I don't know. Just throwing that out there, manifesting in the universe. Anyway, Chris, any final thoughts on this one?
Yeah, like I said, from a technical standpoint, it was really memorable, from the voice acting to sound effects to everything with tying in. That was one of my big things too, was being able to very deftly handle all the history of the Phase 3 comics for people like Joel that did not read them. So I was able to bring them up to speed. And it was cool for us that read those things to experience them in a different way through audio means. So good stuff there. Getting Mark Yambro stabbed by Lourna Dee, definitely showing that he was vulnerable. So this guy is killable. I mean, he got wounded pretty good there. So to show, like you said, the chink in the armor. But yeah, Avar Chris was in there. It's just so cool to actually be able to hear the Jet after about reading them through like the 20 plus books, and we're getting to actually put a voice to the characters. So when I'm reading a novel, I think about, the characters represented in these audio dramas. Seeing Bulan as a cool villain. Yeah, it's great to see where things end up to with the Tempest Breaker Guild, with the Marshal of the Republic Defense Coalition, or whatever it is, fleet with Keeve Trennis, and a lot of good stuff from Skier. So I think I gave this like an 8 out of 10 on my channel, something like that. So yeah, I would still say it's around there, even though it sounds like I didn't freaking listen to the thing, guys. I promise you I listened to it. Go back and watch my video on the channel. I'll be a little bit more specific based on what I was able to provide tonight. So my bad on that.
I mean, that's from what, like just after it came out, late December, early January. So.
And mind you, I like I told Matthew before this, I was like, I sat down and listened to that thing in like less than a day. Like, if I spaced it out like 1 hour a day, I'd probably be able to retain a little bit more than I did. But we're used to talking about comics that came out the day of as we're recording these, so that's a little bit of a different exercise for me to recall something from 2 months ago, on top of reading Mask of Fear. On top of reading all these other things that have come out since.
So much Star Wars.
I spaced it out. That's why I remembered.
Speaking of Mask of Fear, spacing that out, I'm still just a third of the way in. So I want to finish it before it comes out. But anyway, speaking of not having to wait too long, though, we only have to wait 2 weeks until. This is why we jogged our memory now. The 2 weeks from now is Fear of the Nameless. Is it? Or Fear of the Jet? Is it 2 weeks or 3 weeks from now? 2 weeks from now, I can do math. Yeah, it's 2 weeks. The 19th.
Oh, the 19th. Okay.
Yeah, when that comes, I'm pretty sure. But we looked it up at the beginning. We looked it up 2 hours ago. But sometime late February is when that comic comes out. So glad we got to recap this one and get through it. But next week we are back at it with the Battle of Ariadu and High Republic Adventures number 15. So definitely moving the story forward. Speaking of hurling towards its end, Battle of Ariadu, another significant chunk of story in the High Republic right here in the comics, and a new one, Bad Batch Ghost Agents #1, going back to the Clone Wars era with that. Chris, what are you looking forward to the most here?
Oh yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to the High Republic issue. Was it 15? Yeah. That's great because we're going at a good clip here. We left off with this huge climactic moment of Court possibly being mortally wounded. I do think that the High Republic needs a little bit more depth. It needs a little bit more stakes because Phase 3. No, seriously, Phase 3 is kind of annoying in my eyes. It's like, oh, this character is back. This character is alive. Is there no stakes anymore? Obviously, Stella Geo did not survive. Yeah. I feel like he's the only one that didn't actually survive.
Yeah.
So I want to see a little bit more realism. I know this is fake and it's in space, but
also in all ages comic book.
Oh yeah, okay. I guess he's not dead. But whatever. Anyway, I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to that more.
Yeah. Again, hurling, like, this is a climax of characters that have been earned over the last 4 years, right? That's why Court we care so much about whether or not he's okay. And then Bad Batch. I mean, it'll be fun. We've definitely we've had these characters for a few years as well, but in a different medium. So
if you wouldn't mind me to provide a quick interlude on the Bad Batch real quick with the publishing of the Bad Batch.
Yes. Speaking of
we just got an announcement today of Bad Batch Sanctuary taking place around season 2. This is this comic book that's coming out is taking place before season 1.
Yeah, it's during the Clone Wars.
Dang it, if none of them are taking place after the series finale. I'm like, oh, come on. So I automatically lose my hype level when I found those out for this comic and for the novel. It seems like Lucasfilm has a tight lid. They're probably going to use the characters. I'm imagining this is a clear indicator that they're probably doing something with animation with them next because they're not letting anybody touch anything after that time period, I'm guessing.
Yeah, they're definitely holding on to it. I mean, interesting. Everything with Pabu. I mean, that's kind of a missing year. It's different circumstance. I'll give him that. But yeah, I'm always happy to go back to the Clone Wars. I'm the prequelist here, so Joel's the sequelist. I'm prequelist. So that'll be fun. But yeah, definitely continue that battle of Variado. Give us more hurling towards the end here. So looking forward to that. Do check out it. I think Diamond's kind of getting back on its feet. Maybe if you're with your local shop is with Penguin or who knows what. But do check out your local comic book shop. See if they have it in. If not, then digital is an available option. But yeah, with that, we got there. We did it. Great discussion, everyone. Joel, those two. Thanks for jumping in for both Legacy of Vader and High Republic Tempest Breaker. Thanks as always for joining in. Where can they find you on the internet?
You can find me at JID20234 on Blue Sky, JID20234 on Blue Sky, or of course, as usual, on the Star Wars Underworld Discord server, where I'm there a lot. So,
okay. Where else can they find you on the internet?
Oh yeah, and you can also find me on the Ion Cannon podcast with Matthew over here every Monday, starting at 5:30 p.m. Pacific time, 8:30 p.m. Eastern.
Next week we're talking all about point of view and kind of reliable narrators versus unreliable story perspectives, and is it fact or fiction? Well, it's fiction, but how reliable is that fiction? So keep it locked right here on the Underworld YouTube channel. Chris, thanks as always. Thanks for indulging me in the Tempest Breaker conversation, and of course helping
I gotta say thank you to Joel Davis on this episode, because without you this would have been a very awkward
episode me talking
for me. Basically, all right, you just go on a monologue for like 30-40 minutes. I'll just be chilling here.
I've done it before.
I was able to remember some stuff.
I just had a brain meltdown, brain lapse. But as far as my channel, youtube.com/StarRaptor, glorious day for me and a lot of my friends out there that are Jurassic Park fans, because we got our first trailer for Jurassic World Rebirth, which is it's the new era of Jurassic Park movies. Scarlett Johansson, Jonathan Bailey, Mahershala Ali. Great trailer. I have my reaction on the channel. Dilophosaurus, you got Velociraptors, you got Spinosaurus. My favorite freaking dinosaurs are back in this movie, coming out in July. I did a nice little reaction on the channel. Look for that there. You can also find my thoughts to the moment of fun things like Stormtroopers and Destiny and whatnot over on my Twitter, twitter.com/StarRaptor for more gaming things of that nature, screenshots, Ghost of Tsushima stuff. I find cool, put it out there. So there you go. Very good show. Yeah. Looking forward to more of this Kylo Ren story for sure.
When does that Jurassic Park movie come out?
Oh, it's nuts. I just seen a
do you know what date?
Yes, it's I think it's July 2nd. Okay. And then you have Superman coming out, I think the following week. And at the end of the month, you also have the Fantastic Four movie coming out. So it's all of my favorite franchises releasing a movie that month. It's going to be glorious.
Fantastic Four coming out during a certain little gathering in San Diego.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
During San Diego Comic-Con. So guess we're lucky.
It's crazy because in San Diego, like the theater, you have to go like 40 minutes away. I cannot understand how they don't have a theater downtown. Yeah, you have to literally go to the suburbs to find an AMC.
Fair enough. Yeah, it's gonna be a great nerdy summer, including all these comic books that are going to continue to come out. We're now into the new era of Star Wars comic books, and it's off to a fantastic start. Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram and Threads and Blue Sky at MNEUG1138. I got all sorts of thoughts, including I guess some thoughts on tariffs and other things on this side of the border, but maybe not so much anymore. We'll wait another month for that. Also an election, different things, but I don't just talk politics. I talk different kind of social, just things happening here around Toronto, whatnot. So yeah, check me out there. Also, if you like fried chicken, beaches.foodie on Instagram as well. So yeah, check that out. Of course, the Iron Cannon podcast. Yes. Twitter, yes, Twitter, Instagram, and Threads, Iron Cannon Pod, EYEONCNONPOD, and more actively now at Iron Cannon on Blue Sky. Joel, you got a book of the day thing going on, so definitely.
Today's book of the day was the Kylo Ren one.
Yes, was Legacy of Vader, which is you that's a great idea, a great thing you got started there. Hopefully, check that out. Please do. Yeah, give us a like and a follow, and this video. Let us know in the comments on socials what you thought of Legacy of Vader #1. What you thought of Tempest Breaker? What you're looking forward to for High Republic Adventures #15 and Bad Batch Ghost Stories. Where I'm finding this? I had this thing here. I can find it. I can do this. I can do this. There it is. Yes, let us know what you're looking forward to with High Republic Adventures #15, Hyperspace Stories, Bad Batch Ghost Agents #1. But that about does it for the Tractor Beam Comics reviews for this week, Wednesday, February 5th, 2025. Yeah, check those books out. Until then, happy reading.